Now, I'm making a cup of tea and I suggest you do too, because this week's going to be a bit of a Finn rant as well as a Finn waffle because I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet. Hey folks, it's Finn. Welcome back, you lovely, lovely people. Thank you so much for checking out another one of my videos. And if you are watching for the very first time, then a massive, massive welcome and thank you for choosing one of my videos. So I did actually have a plan for a video I was going to share this week, but I've had a change of heart because I really want to share something with you. Because this week has not gone to plan at all. In fact, like the last couple of weeks haven't really gone to plan. So as you know, in my last video I shared that we were going to Wales camping, and if you follow my social media, if you're part of the Friends of Finn club, you'll know this anyway, and thank you all for your support around this, by the way. We had to cancel our Wales trip because they had some yellow storm warnings, and it's a long way. It's like a 3.5 hour journey from here in Plymouth. And whilst we're not wimpy campers, we don't mind a bit of rain. The trouble is now, with me so disabled by my ME, Chris has to do a lot of the heavy lifting. I would have just run around and put the tent up on my own beforehand, whereas Chris has to do most of it now. So imagine that. We've had this before in the storm and rain, and it's just not possible. And then you've got the problem where I've got to still go and use the toilet block, and I either have to kind of go for the rigmarole of getting the scooter out or try and make a dash for it. And I can't dash anywhere right now. So it's not just the being in the tent, it's also trying to use the facilities. And then, you know, getting wet with ME and just, you know, the immune system, my immune system is just shot. So we ummed and ahed and cried a bit and then just decided that we just had to cancel it. It was our last camping trip of the year, and we should have thought about it really. We should have done Wales as a camping trip earlier in the year and done a more local camping trip as our later in the year, because then if we were closer and it was too bad, we could have come home, but 3 hours away, too much. A really, really, really kind friend said, look, I'm away for a week. My house in Oxfordshire is empty. Why don't you come and use it for a week and you can just water my plants, do me a favour? Like, absolutely. So off we went to Oxfordshire. Really lovely gesture this was. We had a lovely couple of days, and then Chris's mum was taken ill and we had to go up there. She's absolutely fine now, it's okay, but of course, you know, we had to go up and make sure she was okay. So that holiday was cut short. And then we get back to find post, and I have recently applied for disability benefit because of how severe my ME is making things and making it difficult to work and all of this. And I opened up this letter to find that I've been turned down for disability benefit. But worse than that, the letter I received, I asked for a transcript of the notes that the assessor had written for when I went for my face-to-face appointment. It was advised that I did this because quite often now, when we apply for these disability benefits here in the UK, it's common that they are turned down initially and we have to appeal. This is what happens here. So I kind of knew this. So I'd asked ahead of time for a copy of his notes. They are awful. They are full of lies. Chris came with me, and I'm so glad that he did, because I have a witness of how many lies there are. I mean, it's so blatant that me and Chris are sitting and just shaking our heads and going, why on earth? Especially when he knew that Chris was there witnessing this, did he lie? There are blatant lies and there are blatant omissions as well. I mean, there are things like he's put that when he called my name, I got up from the seat without using my hands or anything for support, when in actual fact, when my name was called, Chris pulled me up. And then I linked arms with Chris and he walked me in. That's how I usually walk anywhere now, because I'm not steady on my feet. I have to walk very slowly anyway, because for me, walking is my biggest trigger with ME. I have really bad orthostatic intolerance, which shoves my heart rate up. And once that happens, I go into fatigue really, really quickly. And if that happens, I go into post-exertional malaise really quickly. And if that happens, I go into a crash really quickly, which is why I started using the mobility scooter. And that's helped a lot with that. So whenever I walk any steps, and I only take a few steps indoors, I do that with Chris. So because this was park outside, a few steps indoors, we didn't use the mobility scooter. And I wanted to keep it as I would normally do. So if we are parking outside a venue and I've got Chris with me, I will take a few steps, have a break, take a few steps. So I kept it true to how I would normally do because I'm an honest person, okay? So he saw how I would normally do in my daily life. But he mentioned none of this. He mentions things like I was alert throughout, I didn't need any prompting. There's no mention of the fact that Chris kept saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Because I was clearly struggling. The fact that I had to stop the assessment twice because I was overheating and he had to open the window. But then once the window was open, the background noise was too much. I got really bad sensory sensitivity, especially with my hearing. I get really kind of like jumpy of noises. So then that was difficult as well. Had to stop it again because my mouth went dry and I was struggling for words. No mention of that. But folks, what is the worst thing in the world? And this is why it's Friday today and we got back on Monday, and it's taken me this long to make a video because I couldn't possibly make one, because if I had, it would have just been me shouting. Is he misgendered me throughout the letter, but went back and forth on calling me he and she. And I've just felt completely and utterly sick all week. And I did the kind of devil's advocate thing, has he copied and pasted from stuff? And it isn't. It's in the same paragraph. And the paragraphs relate to that day. So he'll say something like, he stood up using his hands and she didn't seem unsteady on his feet. So how can you swap pronouns within the same sentence even? It feels purposeful. And what's even weirder is that at the very beginning of the conversation, after he said, "Who is this with you?" and I'd introduced Chris, he was asking for some details, and he said, so I can't remember what the first question was, but then he said, "Are you male?" And I said, "Yes." So he knew I was male, and we talked about my gender transition within there. So he knew that I'd been going through gender transition since 2010. It's now 2022. I look like this. I'm clearly male. There's clearly no confusion that I'm about to transition to female, And it just really, really knocked me for six. I just went into a real awful gender dysphoric spiral. I haven't had that happen for such a long time. And Chris was saying, "Well, why is it? How is being called she?" Because of course he understands the pain, but he just really wanted to try and understand how at this far, when I'm this certain about who I am, it could cause that much upset. And I was trying to explain how it's not just she, it's an insult. It's like someone using a slur, because it is being used in a slur, because it's quite clear I'm male. It's quite clear that it's a slur. It's like, and I'm sorry, but using another word, it's like, I tried to explain it to Chris as if rather than using Chris's name, if someone had written Chris the faggot sat next to me, it's like that. It's like using she as a way to say that this person is transgender and I don't like it. Do you know what I mean? Now, I get a lot of nasty comments on my YouTube all the time. I get lots of people who troll my account. There's lots of gender critical, whatever they want to call themselves these days, who will come on and write nasty comments, misgender me on purpose. And I've developed a really thick skin around that most of the time in these days, I'm just deleting comments. My energy is precious. I choose to spend it on you people who really want to be there for community support, learning, whatever. People that just want to be here because they've got their own pain and they just want to project it onto others and make nasty comments can just go away as far as I'm concerned, and I delete them. But I'm used to seeing these. I do a lot of public talks. I do a lot of things that get shared on other pages, and sometimes I read the comments and they are nasty and they affect me, but not to this level. And I kind of sat for a minute. I thought, why am I reacting like this so badly? And it's because he was in a position of power and trust. He was a professional person that was there that I was supposed to be able to go to and trust and share so deeply and personally about my difficulties. I was in a room with him sharing about my medical history, all the ways I struggle at home, my toileting, my showering, my eating, all of these really personal things. And so that's why it hurts so deeply. That's why I feel so utterly traumatized. I feel so utterly vulnerable. I honestly feel like, I said to Chris, I feel like someone's dirty sock that they've picked up off the floor and used to wipe their bum. That's how it's felt this week. It's just, if you're trans and watching this, you know how this feels, and it's so hard to try and describe this to somebody else. It's hell. It's hell. And it's because this person was a person of trust and power. And it's put me into this state of like, I can't trust anyone. Because my immediate thought was like, I need to reach out for help now to appeal this. But I can't. Because what if the person I reach out to at an advice line is also transphobic? And it's put me back in that position of like, I can't trust anyone. And that's a horrid, horrid feeling. Now, over the last few days, I've really been very open and I've shared it in lots of places, and I've got so much love and support from so many people who have just echoed the truth back to me that this is inappropriate, this is transphobic, this is unprofessional, this is awful, Okay, regardless of the fact that the disability benefit I'm entitled to, he's definitely not in a I've lost the word, he's not competent, clearly, if he can't even see my gender and he can't separate his own beliefs from I can't think of the word, I've got brain fog going on. He can't be relied upon to make a unbiased opinion. I don't think his decision can be relied upon. Whatever, most cases get turned down like this and then will get re-awarded, if not at mandatory reconsideration, then at appeal. I know that. But the misgendering and the lying is what I've got the real issue with, and it's everyone else kind of reminding me that that is not okay, has really helped. And so it's taken me like the last few days to really kind of sort that out. And I've had to ring some advice lines for help and support. I've rung the crisis line this week, Plymouth Crisis Line, because I got to such a kind of like heightened, triggered, nervous response activated state that I just needed somebody to just listen. And it's so difficult to access any counselling support right now because there's such a waiting list, and I'm on a waiting list for help to deal with the impact of my ME. So I'd be waiting months. So I rang the crisis line because I was just like, I need to just chat, because I'm just like, I just feel so awfully sick and just violated and awful. It was horrid, really, really horrid. So yeah, I just wanted to share that today. I know I've kind of waffled on and not really explained much about our disability benefits. I will make a video where I'll explain more about the way our disability benefits work and how I've applied. But it is notorious in the UK that these assessments are dreadful, and when you get your decision that says no, or they don't award you the right amount, you have to do something called a mandatory reconsideration, where you just refute the points, and if that fails, you then have to go to appeal. So I should be doing two things. I should be doing the mandatory reconsideration and sending that off, but I'm also filing a official complaint about his lying and about his misgendering. I mean, he might say that it was an accident, but even if it's an accident, that's a failure on his behalf, and he needs some training. Do you know what I mean? Either way, it's wrong. So there will be letters of complaint going to every department that I can send it to, including my local MP, and Chris is going to do the same as well, because it's just disgusting. And I've talked to a lot of trans people as well that this has happened to. I've talked to a lot of people that have had lies told about them in this way, and this is not on. And I've talked to a lot of trans people who've been misgendered by this process, and that's not on. So I'm going to be doing something about it, because it's just not right. And no, it's hard enough to cope with having a chronic illness like this and dealing with this every day. It's just no. Basically no. Right, I've waffled on for 16 minutes, and I'm trying to keep these less because I know how much it is to watch, but I want to try and finish on a bit of a kind of positive note. And there isn't much of a positive note with this one, because it is horrid, right? But the last thing I want is to put anybody off applying for benefits. There is nothing wrong with being on benefits. If you are in need of benefits, you should always apply for them, and you should never let this thing put you off. Now, I'm seeing an occupational therapist at the moment as part of my ME treatment. She is wonderful, right? She's really good. It's just on the phone, which I was a bit disappointed about. There's another video I need to make. But anyway, she's great. And this week we were talking, and she was saying about how sometimes there isn't, I try and keep the positive side as much as I can, but sometimes you can't find a positive. So when there's something really negative that goes on, rather than just try and desperately find a positive when there isn't one, just try and find a realistic. And the realistic here is, I will win. I am entitled to this benefit because my daily living is really severely affected by ME and I need help. My mobility is severely affected by my ME and I need help. So when I go to mandatory reconsideration or appeal, I will win. That's the realistic. Okay, there's no positive at the moment. That response was rubbish. But the realistic is, I will win. The realistic is as well, that response was rubbish. That is the negative. It's horrible, evil, whatever you want to call it. But the realistic is, he was wrong, and he will be pulled up on it one way or the other. So there we go. So if anybody else watching this is now freaking out about applying for benefits, don't let this stop you, because you have a right to appeal. There isn't a process there. There's a right to complaint. There is a process there, and these things should not stop you. There are success stories where people do go straight through without problems, but the more people that hold off going through this for fear of this happening, the more they do it. So if this is happening to you, appeal it, complain it. Don't let this happen. It's not on. Yes. I shall now step off my pedestal. Told you it was going to be a rant. There is some positive news this week, though, which I do want to share before we sign off at almost 18 minutes. I'm so sorry. Guess what? This week, you may have already seen this, I have reached 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is just incredible. It's just absolutely blows me away that 20,000 of you like to come and watch me waffle and rant, especially at the moment when I do just go off on tangents and forget words, and I'm just like, no editing, and bleh. I'm so grateful. I really, really am so incredibly grateful. And I promise that I'm always going to try and use my platform for good. Especially, this is why I'm still trying to make videos right now in the state that I'm in, because I'm so passionate about overcoming stigma. Everything I talk about is about overcoming stigma. And with ME, there's a ton of stigma. And so, with this benefit thing, I've got a platform of 20,000 subscribers. Okay, it's not 1 million subscribers like some, but it's still loads. It's amazing. That first video, when I got my first 10 subscribers, I was dancing. And now here we are, 20,000. So I will always try and use my platform for good. I have a plan for a 20,000 subscribers celebration. There will be more on that soon, but in the meantime, what I'm doing as a big thank you to you all is I'm making one of my Friends of Finn members vlogs available to you to watch for a limited amount of time until I make the 20,000 subscribers vlog. I will link it. I never know which corner to point to, but it will be there for you. It's kind of behind the scenes that I do for Friends of Finn members every month, but you get to see it. It's full of really weird silliness this month, so enjoy that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your lovely comments as always. For those of you who've seen this on social media and shared your love and your advice, just so grateful, because if I was going on through this alone, I think I'd be rocking in the corner right now. I really do. Love you all very, very much. Have a great weekend, and I will update next week. Love you loads.
Bye-bye. So talking